humanity. Keep watching The Politics every Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time on New York Parrot TV, the voice for humanity.
Welcome to Talking Politics. I am your host, Robert Press. I write for the Bronx Chronicle, as you can see by my official New York City press card. I also contribute to the Co-op City News and Park Justice Times. The latter, like this show, is part of Muslim Media Corporation. I also have a blog at 100%.blogspot.com and Facebook pages 100% and what is going on in your community board. The views expressed on this show are those of the host, any guest, or any commentator whose comments you may see scroll across the bottom of the screen, and not necessarily those of Muslim Media. Let's go to the weather and look outside our window. It is the ground is a little wet outside, but the rain apparently has stopped, and we should get about a high of 57 today. Tomorrow is Saturday. It should be sunny with a high of 63. For Sunday, Mother's Day, there is a possible rain chance early in the day with a high of 62. And Monday, the warmer weather returns with a sunny day in the low 70s. Let's go into some world politics right now. The Gaza situation. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said yesterday that he was strong enough to fight alone as the United States warned that it could cut military aid to the country. If we have to stand alone, we will stand alone, Netanyahu said in a video message Thursday for Israel's Independence Day, which begins sundown Monday, May 13th. Rear Admiral David Hagari, the IDF spokesman, added Thursday that the IDF has the necessary weaponry for its planned operations, including in Rafah. Their remarks came after President Joe Biden threatened to halt shipment of U.S. offensive weapons to Israel if the country moves ahead with its long-planned ground invasion of Rafah, the last remaining city in the Gaza Strip that hasn't been invaded. Israeli ambassador to the UN Ambassador Gilad Erdan said Biden's comments were very disappointing and would embolden Iran, Hamas, and Hezbollah, while Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich said that Israel must withstand the international pressure and continue its war despite President Biden's pushback and arms embargo. A ship carrying humanitarian aid for Gaza set sail yesterday from Cyprus, according to the Cyprus foreign minister and marine tracking websites. The cargo vessel MV Sagamore is expected to make its first delivery aid to Gaza using a U.S.-built pier. Israel has to make a clear choice on whether it will escalate its current operations in Rafah and trigger a decision by President Biden to withhold additional weapon shipments, National Security Chief John Kirby said. Kirby said if Israel opts to smash into Rafah, Biden would have to make decisions to shut military aid down. I made it clear that if they go into Rafah, they haven't gone into Rafah yet. If they go into Rafah, I'm not supplying the weapons that have been used historically, Biden told CNN in an interview. Netanyahu so far has not ordered troops into the city of Rafah, where Israel says 4 battalions of Hamas fighters are based. Let's go into a stormy situation here now, the Donald Trump trial, where the jury heard testimony of second day from Stormy Daniels in the Donald Trump hush money trial. There is a gag order, and the judge has again held Trump in contempt of court, fined him another $1,000 for commenting publicly on the trial, sternly warning the former president of the possibility of jail time for any future violations. Now, what this case is about is that Donald Trump is charged with 34 felony counts of falsifying business records as part of a scheme to bury stories that he feared could hurt his 2016 campaign. It was a alleged sex affair with then porn star Stormy Daniels in 2006. It's almost 20 years old, but here's a little about what's going on. Speaking briefly to reporters outside the courtroom yesterday, Trump rallied against Judge Martin, who had just denied his lawyer's request to modify the gag order so he could respond to Stormy Daniels' testimony and to declare a mistrial. And what he said was this judge what he did and what his ruling was is the disgrace, Donald Trump said. Judge Marchant said Trump's lawyers had ample opportunities to object to questions that were elicited, what they say were damaging details about the alleged sexual encounter. There was many times, not once, not twice, but many times when they could have objected, but they didn't, the judge said. In particular, he said the defense should have objected to the prosecutor, Susan Hoffinger's question whether Trump used a condom, which led Daniels' response that he hadn't. For the life of me, I don't know why they didn't object, the judge said, also rebuffing the defense claim that Daniels' testimony was so different from previous accounts of the alleged events as to warrant a mistrial. The prosecutor, Joshua Steinglass, argued that the messy details given by Daniels were Trump's motive to silence this woman before she could tell her story. This is why Mr. Trump tried so hard to prevent the American people from hearing about this, he said. However, Daniels' embarrassing testimony may have been that way to Trump. The prosecutor said it could have been worse. There were other salacious details that Daniels could have presented as corroborating evidence, which was deliberately omitted because we did not have the desire to embarrass the defendant. Prosecutor offered to share those details with the judge privately, saying he did not want them on the record. He concluded, the prosecutors, that the claim that Daniels changed the story is extraordinarily untrue, though there may be details said in one forum and not another. Steinglass said prosecutors have always contended the details of the encounter, a 2-hour conversation between Daniels that she said she had with Trump in his hotel suite, corroborate that their account that they had sex, and therefore adds the Trump motive to silence her. Trump's lawyers are alleging that prosecutors elicited a level of detail from Daniels that specifically when it came to the visceral reaction she said she had when allegedly seeing Trump sitting on the bed in his hotel room, stripped down to his boxer shorts and T-shirt, that she testified she felt like the room was spinning, blood rushing to her head and feet, and feeling like she'd black out. The defense is concerned that Daniels' testimony went beyond the rules established by the judge before the start of the trial to protect President Trump from being prejudiced by gaudy details and didn't match the account that was offered up to Cohn when he decided to pay her $130,000 for her details. It was so prejudicial and so incredible for a jury to hear, blaming prosecutors for asking questions that elicited intimate details of an alleged sexual encounter, including asking Daniels whether Trump used a condom, which Daniels said also that the 2006 sex was consensual. President Trump has said, I did not have sex with that woman. Now, who was the only other president that we know of recently that said those same words? If you're wondering who it was, remember that President Bill Clinton, which some of you may not have been alive then, also said those words about Monica Lewinsky. I did not have sex with that woman. Okay, on to something else. Bronx politicians ripped Governor Kathy Hochul after she asserted some black children in the borough don't know what the word computer means. Hochul, speaking at a forum in California Monday, said right now, young black kids growing up in the Bronx don't even know what the word computer is. Hochul said it at a forum on Monday. They don't know these things, and I want the world opened up to all of them, she continued. We have some responses from some of our elected officials. Assemblywoman Karina Reyes wrote on X saying that the governor has to do better, that the Assemblywoman was deeply disturbed by Hochul's remarks. Our children are bright, extremely capable, and more than deserving of any opportunities that are extended to other kids. Assemblyman John Sicaro said, our children, far from being underestimated, are the epitome of brilliance, resilience, and untapped potential. And Assemblywoman Amanda Septimo said, I would invite Governor Hochul to visit us in the Bronx, to experience firsthand the intelligence, resilience, and the joy that radiates from Bronx children and residents each day. However, on the other side, And it's interesting because the three that I just mentioned are Hispanic assembly members. And when we get to our black representatives, Assemblyman and Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie said, while the governor's words were inartful and hurtful, I don't believe it is where her heart is. I firmly believe she wants to see all of our children excel, Hastie said. Working with Governor Hochul, I hope we can redouble our efforts to bring greater access to technology and to our kids in the Bronx. All of our students deserve an equal chance to grow and thrive, he added. Mayor Eric Adams made a similar statement, and Bronx Borough President Vanessa Gibson said, while I recognize Governor Hochul misspoke in framing her remarks, it's disappointing and hurtful to hear. As a borough, let me share with you all the ambitions, brilliance, and talents of our scholars. Our African-American young children are bright and beacons of hope. When we see them excel and shine, we see our future. As we move forward, let us be reminded that our words are powerful and, while not intentional, can have a harmful impact on our children and families. My colleagues and I look forward to a visit from Governor Hochul so we can show her firsthand what we see in Bronx classrooms each day. While we talk, we must walk the walk. Investments in programs and resources matter and can make an impact and a difference in the educational outcomes of our students and their families. Let us be action more than misguided words. Now, Governor Hochul made those remarks at the Milken Institute Global Conference, where she was primarily discussing her $400 million Empire AI initiative that recently passed as part of the new state budget. Hochul said that she misspoke and regretted it as she told the New York Post in a statement. Of course, black children in the Bronx know what computers are. The problem is that they too often lack access to technology needed to get on track to high-paying jobs in emerging industries like AI. Now, this is my opinion, and it is not necessarily that of Muslim media. And I think that Governor Hochul misspoke, possibly, or is she just upstate racist hick who doesn't remember that every New York student was given a laptop computer, including the black kids in the Bronx, as she says, during the pandemic when public schools were closed and there was remote learning. And that is my opinion and not necessarily that of Muslim media. Mayor Eric Adams may have a new challenger in State Senator Zelmore Myrie, who is edging closer to challenging the mayor in what is shaping up to be a fierce re-election bid for Adams. In a statement, Myron said his conversations with New Yorkers have determined they're tired of showmanship, prompting a challenge. What people want to see are results, he continued. New Yorkers want to see their government working relentlessly to make the city affordable, safe, and livable. That's why I'm taking the first steps to explore a race for mayor. First elected to the state Senate in 2018, Myrie represents Central Brooklyn. However, his policies have ramifications extending far beyond his district. He has passed bills ranging from gun safety to election reforms, but his crowning achievement thus far has been the passing of the Clean Slate Act, signed into law by Governor Kathy Hochul, which seals criminal records of formerly incarcerated people after a certain period of time, provided they maintain a clean record and leave parole. Myrie's bill was a win for criminal justice reform advocates, but also for small business owners who have long complained of worker shortages. It's a coincidence, though, however, that Myrie's Senate seat covers the areas of Park Slope, Crown Hopes, and Lefferts Gardens, which was once represented by Eric Adams when he was in the state Senate. I am going to pause here for a break one thing, let me just inform you that Columbia University is canceling its largest commencement service following months of turmoil that culminated in the mass New York City arrest of pro-Palestinian students who had set up encampments on the campus and occupied a school building. The graduation had been scheduled for May 15th, and news of its cancellation on Monday drew expressions of disappointment from some students. And lastly, before I go to the Commercial, Winnie Greco has returned to work for the Adams administration after taking a leave of absence when FBI agents raided her home in the Bronx in February. She started at a salary of $100,000 in 2022, and now in 2024, she earns $185,000, which is an 85% salary bump up. Now, let me go to a commercial, and when I come back, I will have Mr. Marty Dolan as my guest, who is a candidate in the 14th Congressional District, of which I have history the past few years. So let's go to a commercial right now.
Do you know that there is a publishing company that wants to make life easier for you as a writer? This publishing company is called World Inkers Printing and Publishing. We publish in all different languages, and we're looking for writers of all genres, all formats. We're looking for scholars, ghostwriters, playwrights, poets, short fiction, novelists, you name it. We're looking for anybody who is interested in writing and the craft of writing to be in touch with us. You can reach us at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. With World Inkers Printing and Publishing, you do not require a lot of money to publish with us. Contact us today at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. Become a winner with other authors at World Inkers Printing and Publishing. Give us a shot. We will surely finish you.
Okay, welcome back. I have Marty Dolan as my guest. If we can bring him on, Mr. Producer. It appears, though, that, and welcome, Mr. Dolan. Now, it appears that the political organization Justice Democrats PAC has filed a complaint with the Federal Election Commission against you, and you are challenging Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, I must say that I moderated a debate in 2017 between then candidate Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and a sit-in for then Congressman Joe Crowley. If you want to see a little part of that, it's in the movie Bring Down the House. There's a couple of minutes from the debate, and I wanted to get that out so you knew that, Mr. Dolan. But as I did with then candidate Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I'm going to treat you the same way. So how are you, Mr. Dolan? And
I'm doing great.
What is this Justice Democrats complaint about you?
It's a little thing about how we filed, some of our documentation with the FEC. It's not on the same scale as what she's done, which is she's used video from Congress in her campaign materials. So that's a misuse of public funds. We simply haven't put in, for example, when somebody sends in an Act Blue contribution, they're supposed to say where they work, or they can decline. They can decline to do that, but we're supposed to write them twice and ask them for it. It's that type of stuff. But I think it's nice that the Justice Democrats are paying attention to us and helping us out. I think it's we're glad to have their interest.
Oh no, you're just like the Bronx Democratic Party, because they had problems too with their filings. It seemed that one of their executive directors just put in anyone, anywhere as far as the campaign donations, and it seemed that the campaign finance board came down on the Bronx Democratic Party, many years ago for that. So you're in good company with the Bronx Democratic Party.
Well, that's not what we're talking about, but it kind of is what we're talking about, which is we think this is a perfect symptom of what's going on, which is the representative in this district is not paying attention to the issues of the district. Okay, they're doing their usual playbook of whatever they can talk about besides the issues of the district, because really what's in the district is not the focus of this representative. So if you go back a week, there was an 8,000 word essay in the New York Times written by one of the people close to that side. I can't say it was written by the campaign, but we kind of know how that works. So in 8,000 words, they talked about how AOC could be in the Senate, or could be president, could be, solve all the problems of the Democratic Party. But of the 8,000 words, they didn't use the word Queens or the Bronx, not one time. So that's the hypothesis of our campaign, which is that you've got a representative who's really kind of using the district as a platform for their national franchise. Fair enough. And I think the voters should have a say on that.
Well, we've seen many Bronx politicians move up the ladder I don't have enough time to name all of them. So let me just ask you about your work experience. What kind of experience do you have to run for Congress?
So I worked in the risk insurance business for about 30 years. And for people who don't know what the risk insurance business is, it's the business that keeps the world safe. So for example, if the World Trade Center gets knocked down, the risk insurance business responds. So you see the headlines, it was a $50 billion loss or $60 billion loss. Well, that money is kept safe around the world. It's kept safe by law outside the United States and outside New York State, so that it's like a safety net. And I spent 25 to 30 years, taking care of that and making sure that when terrible things happened, we could at least address the suffering by rebuilding it. And to do that, I traveled all over the world, really dealing with people on a number of issues. For example, if you remember in the old days, there was this liability explosion. So if somebody spilled a coffee cup on themselves at McDonald's, they could get, $3 million. So we address that. We address things like that. We're very systemic, that affected everybody. And by doing that, I think you're really dealing with sophisticated people, from accounting to legal to people on the street who are, have these problems. And you're trying to craft new business laws. And so I think the transition to Congress is going to be, obviously it's a significant change in my business card, but I think it's the same thing. You have to persuade hundreds of very talented people to get with you on an idea. And again, I would contrast that with the current representative whose approach really is to promote their idea and to, just hammer away at their idea. That's not really how you get things done in the world.
Well, let me ask you some congressional business now.
Okay.
As you heard at the beginning of the show, I mentioned the Gaza conflict with Israel and the Palestinian state with Hamas. Our current councilwoman, or I should say, the current councilwoman, she's no longer my councilwoman, my congressional woman, is against Israel and wants a complete ceasefire, and Israel should surrender. What is your view on the Gaza conflict?
Well, I think you're really going into tricky waters when you're talking about this. So it depends on how long you've got. But I agree that what we need is, as fast as possible, a negotiated ceasefire. There's no doubt about that. From our generation, we grew up in a situation, example, where in Berlin we had East Berlin and West Berlin for 30 years, and it was a stalemate. And it was probably the right way to play it. And then over time, we're able to get to, a solution. That was also the case in Ireland. Everybody knows that. It's the case still in Cyprus. So every Democratic president has said there should be a two-state solution. I don't think there's any doubt there should be a two-state solution. What we need to do is very quickly get to a ceasefire and have diplomacy at the highest order, because you can't have a situation where two neighbors are trying to kill each other, for lack of a better word, for reasons that they're both persuaded are super important. And you can't have a situation where your neighbor's digging tunnels under your house for 12 years, and then just like that they expect you to go along with that. So it needs a ceasefire, and I think the Biden administration has set parameters for Israel that are sensible parameters at this point.
Okay. Al, what about the war in Ukraine? Any comments?
Yeah, again, I think you've really got to look at it over a historical perspective. So in our lifetime, at one point, the Soviet Union, as it used to be called, it went all the way into Germany. When I was working in London, I had a guy from Austria working for me, and he ended up, as the Berlin Wall fell, he ended up marrying a girl from the Czech Republic. But that's that's like somebody from the Bronx marrying somebody from Staten Island. It should be a normal part of the world. So we have to remember how much progress we've made in the time since before 1990, 1992, and after. The line, if you call it the line, has moved to the east hundreds of miles. There's been tens of millions of people who've been freed from communism, and now Everyone from the United States is going to Prague. They're they're having their tourist experiences there. I worked in Latvia for a while as an advisor, and so in that context, there's been this huge pushback of the Soviet ideology, kind of 1,000 miles to the east, and they're now pushing back. You can't say it was expected, but in retrospect, you can kind of understand that there's this little bit of this reflexive pushback. I think it's up to the European Union, it's up to NATO, and it's up to the United States to support this effort without American troops. And so Franklin Roosevelt said, it's like lending somebody a hose to put out a fire in their house. And I think that should be the stance of the United States. And I think so far that has been. I will further say, when you hear a big number of money that's, quote unquote, going to Ukraine, about 85 to 90% of that is going to the United States arms manufacturers. And then the rest is going to the Ukraine. So I think at a very low cost to the rest of the people in the world, the Ukrainian people are fighting an incredible battle that's going to benefit all of us down the road here.
And let me ask you about the border wall, since we've seen an influx of migrants in the past few years under the current president. Any comments on a border wall, what you would do or not?
Yeah, sure. I think this one's also pretty easy. If it all comes back to law and order for me. So if you go back 1,000 years to William the Conqueror, there was this group of people who got together and said, we can't just keep fighting each other. We have to have a society based on laws. And that's been like this software that's been built over 1,000 years, and it's constantly getting refined, and we're still refining it. The law is not perfect, but it's getting better. The law says you can't cross the border at these crossing points. That's the law. Now, so I think that's the answer, which is we have to stop that. I don't know whether it's a wall, whether it's a technology. And there's another part of the law that's a little more complicated that I'd like to talk about, which is the relationship between the cities, the states, and the federal government. It's not the case that cities are independent entities. Cities are agencies appointed by a state, and a state is part of the federal republic, which is the supreme entity. So I think we need to clear that up, which is I don't think it makes sense that you have a governor of one state sending these poor immigrants on a bus. Now they're in New York, and there are people in New York who say, well, we're a sanctuary city. We're going to defy the federal government. Well, that doesn't make sense. You should have one law for immigration. It should be consistent throughout the United States. And then, because there's millions of people walking 2,000 miles through, tough terrain to get here because there's this confusion about the law. So we really need to clarify that, and I would freeze the border right away. But that's not typically something a congressman does.
Quickly, because I'm running out of time, we have an issue where at Jacoby Hospital, which is in the 14th Congressional District, and most of the surrounding area is in the 14th Congressional District, the city wants to put 50 current detainees from the Rikers Island Infirmary into a currently empty building on the Jacoby Hospital campus, where they would be given apartments with a lease with little or no cost, have only a security guard at the door, where the residents could go out anywhere and have visitors without any screening process. The current Congresswoman, her office has been contacted. I was personally the person who contacted her office and spoke to her representative. And we've gotten nowhere with the Congresswoman. What do you think about putting an idea of 50 people from Rikers Island who were either waiting trial for a serious crime, otherwise they'd be back on the street with no cash bail, or they're waiting to go upstate to prison? So we have 50 people coming from Rikers Island. What is your opinion of that?
There's a
Quickly,
little,
if you can.
Quickly, it's a bad idea, and it's also consistent with what I'm saying about the Congresswoman, which is she is completely tone deaf to the local concerns. And, it's obvious that this is a bad idea. Even if everything goes smoothly, it's a concern for people. And that's the problem with the lax crime and the zero bail reform, which is you're walking down the street at night and it's how you feel. And I think Representative AOC is directly responsible for that feeling of unrest, because there's just too far on the left, too liberal law and order policies, when how you feel is you should feel safe in your city. And Rikers Island is on an island for a reason. Supposedly crime is going down, so I don't know why there's no room there, but it's a terrible idea. And she first of all, she should condemn it, and secondly, she should agree to a debate with her challenger, because again, if she cares about her district, that's what she would do.
I am in contact with her office. I said, I have you coming on the show. I would like to have her on, and I've been passed to her campaign staff. So we'll see what happens on that. Now, I want to thank you for coming on the show. And before I leave, I have a couple of quick items. Mayor Eric Adams left for New York City yesterday for Rome, Italy, to attend the second edition of the World Meeting on the Human Fraternity and conduct bilateral meetings with leaders and stakeholders. Mayor will remain in Rome until Monday morning, May 13th, when he will travel back to New York City. During his time in Rome, the mayor will travel to Vatican City to meet with Pope Francis. There is a community karaoke tonight at 7 p.m. at KRVC, West 235th Street in Riverdale, just off Riverdale Avenue. The guest is State Senator Gustavo Rivera. Also tonight at 7 p.m., there is as part of Bronx Week, there is a silent disco where you get headphones and dance around in the park. This is 7 p.m. at Loretto Park and Morris Park. The next Pelham Parkway Neighborhood Association meeting is Tuesday night, 7 p.m. at Bronx House, located at 990 Bronx Parkway South, Pelham Parkway South, pardon me. The guest speaker is Janice Hemby, Chief Leader, Community Emergency Response Team, Bronx Division. And lastly, before I sign off, tomorrow, Sunday is Mother's Day, and I want to wish all the mothers out there a happy Mother's Day. And I want to thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you next week on Talking Politics. Thank you.
In a world where the quality of information available to poorer communities is doctored, tainted, and sometimes regressive, where the words fake news have come to mean other people's opinions, it is vital to rely on news platforms with journalists who have feet on the ground and can report the truth. New York Parrot, a New York-based national and global news outlet, is changing the narratives of media operations. We focus on the news that matters, like self-empowerment, entrepreneurship, finances, health, security, politics, and more. We strive to curb violence, racial and economic discrimination, and to promote peace and socio-economic development of multiculturally diverse world. As we give voice to the people, we also give your business a voice and make it heard. Get your products and services off the ground by advertising on our fast-growing platform. With so much of daily visits to New York Parrot, you can't afford to be invisible to prospective clients on the website they trust the most. Our posts reach millions of people across the New York State and around the world. Advertising on our news site will unlock an audience of thousands of potential customers on your doorstep. New York Parrot is born to prosperously speak tomorrow for the voice.
Keep watching The Politics every Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time on New York Parrot TV, the voice for humanity.
Bob, how are you today?
You have live up there, 34.40. Are we live?